It's my joy to be here today, and it's especially my joy because I love being so creative. It's especially my joy to speak with you today just for a little while about the summer of winter. And I have to tell you, I didn't make up that talk title. When I was talking with Joanne, she was like, "Oh, isn't your talk title the summer of winter?" I'm like, "No." But I'll go with it, you know? I'll go with it. And I love that because, you know, when we have an opportunity to go with what's presented, there's never a mistake. You know, life never presents any obstacles or mistakes. You know, there are no mistakes present. There are opportunities to grow and unfold. And so it is with great joy that today that I just simply deliver a message of what I've got to live with and what I have been living with for almost the past week, trying to figure out what the summer of winter is. Yeah. You know, so of course, you know, it's kind of like math, you know, break it down to its common denominator. You remember those days, you know, break it down to the common denominator? I was like, well, what do I know about summer? What I know about summer is that there's plenty. There's an abundance. There's plenty. You know, everything's bloom. Everything's in full bloom. There's plenty of it. And what do I know about winter? Well, winter represents that time of rest, of inactivity, that time of dormancy, especially, you know, in nature. We see that the trees lose their leaves and they seem to be dormant. Therefore, the summer of winter is plenty of rest. I guess by the applause, y'all are tired. Y'all ready for some rest? Well, good, because, you know, in today's reading, what I was struck by with Reverend Christian and what Petra have written for us for today to kind of take the lead from today is simply taking a look at nature. And as I took a look at nature this week, and as I was really being with this talk title, it reminded me of a tree. And the tree has these roots. The job of the roots are to simply take in water and nutrients so that it might feed the tree. You know, and as we approach winter time, this time of rest, you know, our trees, they lose their leaves. They look naked. They look like they're asleep. But what I found out is that the roots are actually resting, but they're ready. The roots are resting, but they're ready. Now, what I know about that is my mother-in-law, she always says, I stay ready. I might look like I'm not doing anything right now, but I'm ready. And at the drop of the dime, you can say, Wendy, do such and such and such, and she's ready. And I love that because it's simply a reflection of nature as us, as life as us. And with these roots of the tree, this root system, it is resting, but it is ready. Now, what I also found out about roots and the root system is that not only does it take in the water and the nutrients, but it also does something that's called stabilizing or anchoring. So the roots will grow into the ground, thus stabilizing and anchoring the tree so the tree could be its glorious tree self. Now, we've all enjoyed the trees, whether it's the fruit-bearing trees or whether it's the shade or the canopy that they provide or whether it's just a cool resting place to take a nice summer nap in, right? Its stability is important, and it is dependent upon the roots doing what the roots do, going deep into the ground and stabilizing it. As a matter of fact, because in the wintertime the roots rest, but they're ready, this is keenly important, not only to the health of the tree itself, but it's important to the rest of the forest. And so it is with us. Metaphysically, how I get to tie this in for us today is this. We, as individuals, are the trees. We, as the community, we are the forest. And our spiritual health, the spiritual health of the forest, of our community, is dependent upon the spiritual health of the individual. And so it is that, especially now during our time of harvest, because we're going to be entering winter. Winter starts, I think, the 21st to 22nd, we enter winter solstice. So our time now is that time of gathering, where we begin to, as our reading said today, we begin to really look over and review our lives and look to see all the gifts, the blessings, all the places where we've been blessed, all the places where we've had a rich life, where we've enjoyed life, where we have been able to travel, where we've been able to embrace a loved one, where we've been able to maybe have some newborns in our lives, or even releasing some people. We begin to really take a look at and gather into the storehouse for the winter the richness of our life. This is also, though, a time where we get a chance to see what it is we're storing in the storehouse. Because, see, sometimes life could get challenging, and if we find that we've been impatient, intolerant, quick to be annoyed, judgmental, we certainly don't want to store that for the winter. Those are not the seeds that we want to plant in the springtime. We want to be assured of what our spiritual truth is. See, for me, and the way that I see this is that the root is to the tree as our consciousness is to us. And so as our consciousness is our roots, if you will, we must absorb the water and the nutrients, meaning the water has been the symbol for spirit, the symbol for life, the symbol for God. So we must absorb our godness. We must be steeped in the awareness that our life is the life of God. We must absorb it to such a degree that we use the nutrients, meaning these spiritual truths, to really just kind of let our tree self shine in its magnificence. You know what I mean? You see, the content of our consciousness must be that which also does what roots do. Roots not only take in the water, absorb the water and the nutrients, but then they transform and they use these nutrients to grow, to develop, but also to repair. You see, for us, our time of rest, our time of winter, is really about resting in our spiritual practice to such a degree that we get to repair the damage that has been done to us, or the damage of our life, i.e., the stuff we learned when we were little. You know that stuff. You're not good enough. You're ugly. You'll never amount to anything. You know that stuff. You're too fat. You're too skinny. You'll never get a real job. Through our spiritual practice, through anchoring and resting in the truth of who we are, through using our spiritual truths, we have an opportunity to repair that stuff that we've been told that is not really the truth of who we are. You see, we're the tree, if you will. And our consciousness is the roots. And so as we begin to really look at entering the winter season, plenty of rest, really what it means is, especially for me, my rest means meditation. It means taking that look within. Now, I know some of you out here, because I could tell, y'all are physically fit. sexy and very attractive. And I'm not talking about the kind of meditation you do while surfing or while on the treadmill. I'm talking about really resting in the truth of your being. Really taking that time, day in, day out, several times a day, increasing whatever your practice looks like now. Our winter season is really that time where we just go within. Where we anchor this truth. Where we're so steeped in it that it is who and what we are, and we are who and what it is. That there's no place where it begins and we end. There's no place where we end and it begins, that it is just this oneness and this wholeness. That's what happens when we engage in restful meditation. That's what happens when we engage in our spiritual practice. That's what happens in the winter. And it is imperative and so essential and so important that as individual trees, that we are also responsible for the rest of the forest. That we do our own work so that our spiritual community can just be this forest of love, of joy, of peace, of abundance, of wisdom, of divine truth and creativity, that which comes out from the forest is an example of the root system really taking in and absorbing and us really knowing who we are beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we live and breathe and walk. I am God. Oh, did I say that? Oh. Right where I am, God is. Right where I am, love is. Right where I am, peace is. Right where I am, abundance is. Right where I am, divine creativity is. That is who and what I am. Can't help it. Don't want to. And so now is the time that as we get closer to this winter season, that we simply begin to really recognize what it is that we're storing in the warehouse, right? In the storehouse. That we really take an honest look at ourselves and go, wow, I have had a rich and abundant life this year. And it is to that, when there's been a way made out of no way. When I thought that something bad was happening, it actually turned out to be something magnificent and good. It actually taught me something. It actually helped me to grow and unfold in such a way. See, that's what I'm going to take in the warehouse, in the storehouse, so that in the winter season, as I meditated, as I'm with Spirit, as I'm communing, and as I'm in that indwelling presence, as I enter the kingdom of God within, I'm simply knowing my truth. And I'm anchoring that in more and more as a restful activity. As a restful activity. And as I do that for myself, and as each other tree does that for his or herself, we have this beautiful forest of sages, of wonderful young podlings, which are our children that are coming up in this teaching and that they're knowing the truth of who they are. That as we surround ourselves with each other and with this consciousness of wealth, of abundance, of love, of joy, of peace, of divine creativity, that essence, that energy that we give forth is simply saying, yes, we're a healthy forest here at Seaside. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Because we're obedient. I used to not like that word. That was one of the things that I got to heal. That was some of the damage done to me as a kid. I love that word now because we are obedient to that call within us that says, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. This winter, we have an opportunity to be in the stillness, to be in the silence, to really anchor our divinity, our truth, for us to really know who we are. that as the springtime emerges, that we might plant the seeds of an even more prosperous and rich and abundant and love-filled, joy-filled life for 2014. Now that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about knowing our truth to the degree that everything around us is just proof that we know who we really are. Ernest Holmes talks about that. Because you see, all of the great avatars, all of our great teachers have talked about knowing our life as the life of God. They talk about going on that journey. They talk about they know who they are. Because of the work, because of the introspection, because of the spiritual practice that they've engaged in, they have an opportunity to know their life as a life of God. And for the rest of us, unless we experience that for ourselves, we're just hearing somebody's story. It's just a story that we've read or a story that we've heard, and we sit around kind of going, I want to get there. I want to know that. Well, we get to rest in the truth, right? So, Ernest Holmes says, we need spiritual experience, a firsthand knowledge of life and reality. All great religions have taught truth, but it means nothing to us unless we become our truth. We need spiritual experience. We shall never know peace until we embody it. We shall never know truth until it becomes truth, until we become truth. And we cannot know God unless we sense God within our own being. The Spirit is ever giving, but we must take. What life does for us must be done through us. And he goes on to say, spiritual experience is deep. Been talking about deep, talking about those roots going deep. It must be anchored, right? It must be calm and self-assertive. It is the result of actually realizing that presence which binds us all together in one complete whole, the forest. This experience comes in the stillness of the soul. When the outer voice is quiet, this experience comes in the stillness, in that restful state, in being still, in knowing that right where we are, God is. It doesn't come from being busy or in the business of life. It comes from being still. And so as we prepare for our winter season, even with all the busyness that can happen, what's most important for us, especially because it's also a holiday season, what's most important is that we become anchored in the truth of who we are. That we don't get so woo-woo and hypnotized by the outer world that we forget the truth of who we are. That we become short-tempered and that we become all the stuff we don't want to be, but that we actually take the time to engage in plenty of rest. The summer of winter, that we take the time to enjoy the summer of winter, the plenty of rest that is so important to us as individuals, but more important to us as a spiritual community. It's important for us to pause, to know this truth, to experience it for ourselves. We're not going to experience it in the busyness of life. We're going to experience it in the stillness, in the silence, in those moments of divine pleasure. Oh my goodness. When I'm just like in that zone, it's like, delicious. I don't want to come back. It's like, whoa. To feel the presence of God as my very life, to feel that essence, and then to emerge out of the stillness and live from that place is amazing. And it's available to us if we engage in the summer of winter, if we engage in plenty of meditation, plenty of rest, resting in the truth of who and what we are. So because it's me speaking today, I get to do things just a little bit differently. So I'm going to just invite you right now for just a moment of rest, just so you get a taste of it and that you can incorporate it in your winter season. So just pause and breathe normally, naturally, right? Close your eyes, your outer eyes, and if you're not comfortable closing your outer eyes, just focus on a spot, a leaf, a spot on the floor, maybe in your lap, maybe your hand. But as we simply bring our attention to our inner self, in that stillness, when the outer voice stops, there's this calm, deep, powerful presence. We have entered the kingdom of God within. And there, and here, we are still. And we know, I am God. For we know that there's one power, one presence, one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. And it created everything out of itself. Therefore, our life is indeed that life that God is. And for our own health, we're just in that stillness. And then for the health of our spiritual community, we're in the stillness again. And as we gently wiggle our fingers and our toes and gently open our eyes or regain focus of where we are, we've just experienced a little bit of winter, a little bit of rest. But even in that little bit, there is plenty. You are my beloved in whom I am well pleased. Enjoy the summer of winter. We tried.